Yeah, nice work. Hi, I'm Gary from Learn to Play Music. Welcome to the 6th episode of The Music Space, Part 2, featuring Sam Tritico, who you were listening to just then. How you going, Sam?
Pretty good, Gary. Good to see you again.
Yeah, you too. That was sounding great, mate. Today we're going to talk a little bit more about your career, as well as elaborating more on the Nashville Number System. So,
sounds good.
Your career. Let's get started with that. Your session work with about 1,000 demos and 100 albums under your
something like that.
Yeah.
What happened is I told the story about joining the Brooks Brothers band last time, and while I was with them, we did about 7 albums. You know, about a 3 or 4 year period, we did about 7 albums. So I got my feet wet in the studio with that, and at some point, the band bought a studio in the middle of that, and so I automatically became a studio musician at that point, because we would back up other bands and record all these different gospel groups in the area, and we would just play the music behind them. And then that was in Chattanooga, which is near Nashville. But then when I moved to Nashville, I already had a little bit of studio work under my belt, and so I knocked on a few doors. I met some people and started recording there. Most of what I did was demo work, but through the years, I would say I've either played guitar, bass, synthesizer, produced, or engineered on probably 1,000 sessions, I would think. And most of those are song demos, but some of them are albums. I don't know if it's 100 or not. I kept going through trying to think of different ones, and they all started coming to mind. But none of them are famous. You wouldn't find them. You wouldn't find them on iTunes, except for one that I recently did. This one is a local artist named Steve Hodak, and he's got an album called Penny on the Track. And I produced that, played all the guitars and bass, and co-produced with Bobby Blazier. He's a Nashville producer, and we brought him down to Florida to help produce this and play drums on it. And there's some great songs on here, and I kind of feel like it's my favorite work that I've played guitar on. I've done a lot of different things, and I'm proudest of this as far as my playing, and also the songs are great, and so I'd recommend it to people.
Great, and that's on iTunes?
I think it's on iTunes and Reverb Nation, 2 or 3 different places.
And we can put that up on the blog for anyone
yes.
who's interested too.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's
sure
pretty much how.
Sure, Steve would be happy about that.
Yeah. So that's pretty much how you got involved in producing and engineering, is it?
Yeah. One thing led to the other, and of course, one of the first things I did when I got to Nashville and I got off the road and wanted to start doing more session work was that I got a job at a music store there, and selling guitars and recording equipment and keyboards and what have you. And so I ended up meeting almost everybody in Nashville that's anybody or that was in the 80s, because they would come into the store and buy their gear. And so I got to meet them, and a lot of them would ask me over to their home studio to lay tracks down, or sometimes to engineer or to help them figure out a problem. And once I'm over there helping them sort through their technical problems, they would say, well, wow, okay, now you can help me record this thing I'm working on. And so the next thing you know, I'm over there all night long and engineering and helping them produce their demo. And then the next thing, I'm coming back the next night playing bass on all the songs. And so it kind of blossomed from there, and I met a lot of people that way.
Great. So yeah, it's all about connections and meeting the right people. But obviously the talent needs to be there as well, which you obviously have. talking about music stores, you ended up owning your own called Sam's Music in Tennessee. Is that right?
That's correct. After a while, I think I worked at that other store. Music Man was the name of that store. I worked there 6 years, I think, and then I went on the road for a year or so. Got off the road. I was a clinician. I went on the road with my guitar and a bunch of MIDI gear, doing clinics for Fostex and Alesis. And so I would go around the southern states in the United States with my van full of gear, putting on seminars, clinics, dealer training, and all of that. And so I got a feel for how different kinds of music stores did things differently besides the one that I had already worked at, and decided when I got off the road doing that, I thought, well, I'll just open my own store. And I opened a store just south of Nashville in a town called Franklin, and it was called Sam's Music. And that store grew very fast for a lot of reasons that I had nothing to do with. Franklin was a lot of people didn't even think of it as a suburb of Nashville in those days. It was a country town. There's a Civil War battlefield there. The Battle of Franklin was a big battle in the Civil War, and Franklin was kind of a country town in those days. This was 1988, and but they had a great school system, and it's just a beautiful place, very hilly and green. And so, for some reason, I think I know some of the reasons, but I'll just leave that up to the historians. But a lot of musicians and producers and people started moving from California and New York to Tennessee, and they gravitated to Franklin. And so here I opened up this music store, and the next thing you know, the people that are walking in the door are not just the farmers and the people who lived around Franklin, but I'm seeing people like John Kay from Steppenwolf, and Felix Cavalieri from the Rascals, and Michael McDonald from the Doobie Brothers, Larry Carlton, Roger Nichols, who engineered for Steely Dan. All these people were coming in my store and buying equipment and setting up home studios, there in the Franklin area, which was south of Nashville. And Franklin started booming, and next thing you know, Franklin and Nashville grew together, and there's a town in between called Brentwood. And so I built a store in Brentwood, in between Franklin and Nashville, and moved my store to Brentwood, and that's really where it exploded, and it became a very big store at that point.
Great. And now you have Violin Music in Florida?
Yes, that store went from '88 until 2001, and I opened up I had 3 stores by the end of the run in Nashville. I had 3 stores. One of them was on Music Row, which is where all the studios are, the commercial studios, and record companies, ASCAP, BMI, and some of the well, NSAI is located there. In fact, we'll talk about that later. But where was I going? Okay, so we had 3 stores. Oh, in 2003, I moved to Florida and opened up this store, Island Music. And it's a lot smaller store. It's on an island, Merritt Island, which is Cocoa Beach is that way about 5 miles, and Cape Canaveral and the Space Center is just about 4 miles that way. And this community, there are a lot of musicians here, but it's nowhere near. It doesn't have the music infrastructure of Nashville with all the studios and record companies and such. So it's a smaller store, but it's a very nice place to be.
Okay. Sam, you're also involved in the Nashville Songwriters Association International, or NSAI, as some people call it. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, NSAI, Nashville Songwriters Association International, is a nonprofit organization founded by songwriters, and they are based in Nashville, but they have chapters in most of the major cities and all over the world. I'm sure there's one in Australia. In fact, I've checked, and there is more than one. And each city that has a chapter gets members. Members go to the website, which is NashvilleSongwriters.com, and you would join online, and there is a fee, but you get to send them songs, and they will critique the songs. Now, the people critiquing the songs are actually hit songwriters or producers or record company executives, A&R people from the record companies. These are people who can do something with your song if it's good.
Okay, so it's a way of being heard for budding songwriters out there.
Exactly. Among other things, there are a lot of other benefits. They have workshops, and of course, we have a monthly workshop here, the second Tuesday of every month, here at my music store. And the local songwriters come, and we study different aspects of songwriting, both the craft and the business of songwriting. And it's very helpful, and it has been very helpful for a lot of our writers.
Yeah, great. It sounds like you also get a lot of support from people helping you stay positive and inspired.
Exactly. And one of the things that we cover at least once a year, I do one workshop on the Nashville Number System, which is what we did last week here on Music Space for Learn to Play. And we'll do some more number system stuff here tonight. I've got a few things there I want to talk about. But the writers here that have come and said, okay, I want to learn the number system, we try to get them all together on the same night, and then we go through it, and they've been very appreciative, and a lot of them have put it into use. And in fact, it really helps us a lot when we have our writers' nights. There's a local Irish pub that lets us do a writers' night every once a month, and that's Nolan's Irish Pub in Cocoa Beach. And the first Monday of every month at 7 o'clock, we have a writers' night there, and we've had over 300 writers through the 6 years we've been doing it. The writers will come and they'll bring me number charts. People that I've taught the number system to or help them understand the number system, they'll bring me number charts, and I'll sit in, and other musicians will sit in, and it's just seamless. We can get up there and play these songs we've never heard before and sound like we're a tight band. It's great.
Fantastic. And obviously we talked a bit about the number system last week. Perhaps, Sam, if you can get us started again, and just for those that perhaps didn't watch last week.
Okay, I'll do a real quick review, and then real quick review, and then let them go back and watch the other one if they want to get more in depth on it. But I do have a couple of things to show. But it's based on a major scale, and if you number that scale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, number the scale tones, and you get where you recognize the intervals like 1, 3, 1, 4, 5, 3, and then so on and so forth. You recognize intervals. It helps you learn songs better, and then when you go to write the chart, instead of writing the chart for, say, the song Something by the Beatles, George Harrison, you would write a 1 for the first chord, and then a 1 major 7 for the second one. And a major 7 in the number system is a little triangle, so it saves, it's less to look at. And then the 7, of course, is just 7, the dominant 7. And then the 4, then a 2, 7, then a 5, 6, minor 7, 5, 7 over 7. And as you can see, there's a lot of numbers there, but it allows you to transpose it. So if somebody wanted to sing it, like, let's say, a female vocalist wanted to do it in E flat, you would just play a 1 in E flat. Like that. And that is why we do the number chart. The number one reason. There's a bunch of reasons, and you can go on the video that's posted from last week and see a lot more about that. And there's one thing we didn't touch on. I don't remember doing this, but that the songwriters really like, because a lot of songwriters don't play an instrument, believe it or not. They kind of come at it from the lyric standpoint, and they might not play. And they say, well, I have to collaborate with a musician. I say, no, you don't. I said, do you hear the melody? Oh, I hear the melody in my head, but I can't play it. I can't sing it. And I say, well, if it's a melody, then you can just number it. And they say, I don't know what you're talking about, and I don't feel like learning a musical instrument. I try to talk them into learning to play a musical instrument. That's the first thing. It's a lot better. But if they don't want to do it, or they feel like they're too old, or whatever, I'll say, you know, sing the numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and if your melody is da, 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 that would be 5, 6, 5, 3, and they say, oh, I can do that. And so we have lyrical songwriters who don't play an instrument that are actually able to use the number system to write their melodies out, so that when they get with a musician, the musician just, and they see the melody and they say, oh, then that's just, this guitar is way out of tune. So that's an application for the number system I don't think we talked about last week, but writing out melodies.
So using the number system for melody as well as the chordal structure.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think, it's probably always going to be an advantage for a songwriter to learn an instrument. I have a few mates that don't play an instrument, and they get very frustrated when it comes to trying to relate their ideas to musicians. And I think that's just another example of how important it is to learn theory, regardless of what you're doing, whether you're playing or just a songwriter. The theory of music is such a good way of understanding it. Is there anything more you wanted to talk about with this?
Let's see. Let me look at my notes on the number system and see what all we have and have not covered so far. Oh, we barely touched on this. And first, I'm going to see if I can get this guitar in tune. I put a tuner on it and chord spelling is another way to use the numbers. Now, this isn't really part of the Nashville Number System, but this has been used for ages. But if you learn how chords are spelled by the numbers, it helps you to, if somebody says a chord, if they say, give me an A-flat 13, and you've never played an A-flat 13, well, you know where A-flat is, and you just count up 13. And then you can just, do an A chord and add that 13 in. And now you know A13. And
so you were going through the extension of the major scale, then, weren't you, Sam? Just for those that weren't too sure, because you played more than 8 notes.
When I got to 8, I just kept going instead of starting back at 1.
So the 2 becomes 9, and so on.
And so 13 and 6 are the same note, an octave apart. And then when you see a minor 11 or whatever, you can knowing the numbers, you can find the chord even if you don't know the chord.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it works in reverse. You come up with a chord on your guitar, you're doing maybe an open tuning or something, and your fingers have landed in this place and it's perfect for the song that you're working on, but you have no idea what the name of the chord is. Well, you can figure out the name of the chord in reverse if you already know where your fingers are. You say, where is this? Okay. And there's an E, there's a 1, there's a 3, there's a 7, and there's a 9, except it's sharp. So you could call it an augmented 9. But that's another application there, is the chord spelling and the melody, which I don't think we touched on those two last time.
No. And they're obviously pretty important ways of using it as well. Ben, do we have any questions?
We have a question from last week from Bob. He asked, in the something chart that was provided, the verse line has 4, 1/3 at the end, and then 1, 1, 1. Can you clarify?
Did you get that, Sam?
Let's see. At the end of the verse.
The verse line.
I got it. Yeah, the last line, the last measure of the first line. Okay. So here's the one. Here's the one and the major 7, the 1 7, and then there's a 4 and then a 1 over 3. So that's, and you see 3 little slashes under the 4. That's 3 beats. And then still in that measure, that's what the line underneath means. That's all one measure. Then there's a 1 over 3, which is, let's see. So we're back to the 1 chord. Let's see. It's a low 3. Okay.
That's a C over an E. Yeah.
So it's going to be a C over E.
Yeah.
So it's 4 Fs and a C over E.
So they're not 3 ones as such, they're 3 slashes.
Yeah.
So that means
that's
the
what
first 3 beats of the bar. Yeah.
Right.
And
Exactly.
then the fourth bar, you go to the 1 over a 3.
Right. And if there's no line under it, and you just see a number like the next measure it's 2 7, then that's all 4 beats are that 1 chord. And then, the next. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. Do we have any more questions, Ben?
We've got an email from Brad. I've been working as a professional musician and been working in a music store for nearly 7 years now. Are there any tips for someone about to embark on creating their own music store?
Oh, wow. Creating your own music store. This is a bad time to do it. I think. But it depends on where Brett. Where is Brett?
Locate. I didn't specify. Sorry.
Okay, because I think location is one of the most important things.
Yes.
You know, if you're going to be in a place where there are a lot of people and a lot of them play music, then you have to look at the competition and see if there are any holes to be filled. And if not, then you don't want to go there. But if you're in a city of 5 million people and there's not a drum shop, then maybe you might want to look at doing a drum shop if you're a drummer. You know, it's so much about it. It is about being in the right place at the right time. And in this economy here in the United States right now, this is not a good time, in my opinion, to be opening a music store, because music stores are having a hard time. Even the big chain stores are having a hard time right now.
Yeah, the online buying is really is making it difficult for the retailer. I know that.
Exactly, and even some of the online stores are cutting back on their inventories. They're cutting back on the lines they carry. You know, it was a candy store 5 years ago, 10 years ago. You went to some of the big online stores and they had everything. And that is one thing that I would say, if you have a music store that's a small store and you're not, you know, particularly well funded, is find things that the big stores don't have. And in fact, there is a lot of stuff out there. In fact, I'm playing through a Quilter amp right now, and Quilter is an amp company out in Costa Mesa, California, that is founded by Pat Quilter, and he's the man who's started the company QSC, the power amp company for PA systems. And now he's building guitar amps again, which is what he first started doing long, long ago, 40 years ago. And he's building these amps, and they're amazing. This little amp right here weighs 19 pounds, and it's got 200 watts. It's pretty amazing. They're not in the big stores, so it's a good line for a small store to carry, because they don't have to worry about somebody coming and trying it out at your store and then ordering it from an online store.
Yeah, that sounds good for older musicians' backs, Sam.
Yeah, that's why he did it, and that's why I play through one. Yeah, you know, obviously at 200 watts and only 19 pounds, obviously it's not a tube amp, but it's the first solid state amp that I've ever played through that I would not be ashamed to take out on a gig. It's got, you know, I'm not going to say it sounds exactly like a tube amp, but with a pedal or two, I can get everything I want out of it.
Yeah, and a great little rehearsal amp too, no doubt.
Exactly, exactly.
I think Ben's got another question for us.
Pat on LinkedIn has asked, what guitar is Sam playing?
Okay, this is a 1964 ES 345 made by Gibson, and I've modified it a little bit. I wish I hadn't, but I already have. I did that when I was too young to know better, because I've had this guitar since it wasn't too old. I put these Grover tuning keys on it, but the 345, just so you know the difference between a 335 and a 345. The 345 has a wider neck this way, and it's got these double parallelogram inlays. Let's see, we've got gold hardware. It's got the Veritone switch right here and a stereo output. So it's a lot like the 355, but I like the 345 better than the 55 because the 55 has an ebony fingerboard and the 45 has rosewood. I like the feel of rosewood better. And I like the feel of the wider neck on a 45 better than a 35. So I've always liked the 345 the best of those three.
And it's her 50th birthday.
Oh, I didn't even realize it. I got to figure out what date I bought this thing and give it a party.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. I didn't buy it when it's new. I bought it in Columbus, Ohio. I was actually doing a session in Columbus, Ohio. What song were we doing? It was some Freddie Fender song, and I was playing on the demo of a Freddie Fender, a song that eventually got recorded by Freddie Fender and became a hit. But I was in Columbus, Ohio, and I was playing bass on that session, and the guitar player was playing a Telecaster. And I told him, I used to own a Telecaster, and I said, then I got a 345, and it got stolen. And he says, oh, I've got a 345 you can have. I don't use it. And he sold me this very cheap because I guess he felt sorry for me because my other 345 had gotten stolen. It got stolen in Kokomo, Indiana. So if anybody finds a 345 in Kokomo, Indiana, that's probably mine. But I like this one better than the one I lost anyway. So.
Well, I had a guitar stolen myself a while back, and maybe if you feel sorry for me, I'll buy that one off you really cheap.
Okay. We hope it works that way, don't we?
That's right. You can only dream.
Yeah.
Any more questions, Ben?
We have a question from Sarah on LinkedIn. How does one go about joining the NSAI?
Go to their website, NashvilleSongwriters.com, and the link will be on there, and they'll ask you for some money.
And you said that
two-step process.
You said that it exists in Australia as well. Is that correct?
Yes. They have. I'm not sure which cities in Australia have a chapter, but I do remember looking it up and finding that they did.
Okay. So get on the website if you want to join, and I guess it'd be a reasonable fee, Sam. It's probably not a lot of money to get started.
Yeah, I don't know the number, and so I'm hesitant to say it. But if you go to the website, you'll see it, and then you'll see a list of things that you get along with membership. And so it's more than just being able to send in your songs. There's more to it.
T-shirt and a cap as well.
What? Oh, yeah.
T-shirt and a cap.
No, they make you buy the T-shirt. I had to pay for the T-shirt.
Oh, well, they've got to survive, I guess,
yeah.
As we do.
Yeah. One of the things that NSAI does with the money that they get from the membership is that they work on songwriters' rights. And so they go to Washington, D.C., and they lobby for songwriters. And,
do we have rights, do we? Oh, wow. Fantastic.
Yeah. We there are a few rights left. And, of course, working with the online streaming sites to try to increase some type of royalty rate for songwriters is, of course, one of their current challenges and battles that they're working on. And that's a hard one.
I assume that the NSAI is run primarily by musicians.
Yes, it's all musicians and songwriters.
Yeah. Great.
And being a nonprofit, it's not run by some corporation or anything, and they're not affiliated with anybody either. So
yeah, wonderful. We have one more question, Ben.
Yep. Fret Math has asked to Sam. I heard about you on here through the Google Hangout. Are you increasing your internet presence, like YouTube videos, etc.?
okay, I missed part of the question, Gary. You're clearer than Ben is. So can you rephrase or say the question to me again?
Can you read the question again, please, Ben?
I heard about you through the Google Hangout. Are you increasing your internet presence through
Yes.
YouTube videos?
Yes. Right now I haven't posted anything on YouTube, but my music store has a Facebook page, and so does our local chapter of the NSAI, and I manage those two pages. Do have a Twitter account, Sam Tritico on Twitter, and I haven't been posting much on that, but I will be. And yes, I will be doing some YouTube videos. And of course, my music store has a website, island-music.com, and so definitely will be increasing the internet presence.
Great. And one more?
Pat has also asked on LinkedIn, if Sam had one piece of advice for a musician starting their career today, what would it be?
Well, I'd want to know what their goals were, but practice a lot. That's the main thing is practice. Make sure you get a good teacher. I think that's really important. Somebody to teach you and learn your theory, like Gary said. Learn your theory, and then if you get to the point where you're getting pretty good, play with other musicians. Get in a band or in some way get with other musicians, because if you can't do that soon enough, you've got to get with other musicians. What you learn from them directly will help you, but also what you learn from them indirectly. You'll learn, if you're a bass player, you'll learn how to get tight with a drummer, which you can't do on your own. You can read every bass book there is, and you can't get tight with a drummer until you play with a drummer. And same, guitar players, keyboard players, whatever you're playing, get with other musicians. That's a really important thing. And this, because of the internet, is less true, or might be less true now, but I would say if you don't move to a city where there is a big music infrastructure like Nashville or LA or London, if you don't move there, at least spend a lot of time in a place like that and make your contacts. Even if you're going to stay, let's say you live in Adelaide, Australia. Well, I would assume Sydney or Melbourne might have more going on for musicians than Adelaide does. Even if you're going to stay in Adelaide, I would say go to Sydney and go to Melbourne and get to know those musicians and get some contacts. Somebody that you can send stuff to if you come up with something that's really good. Yeah,
that's a good answer. I think striving to play with better musicians and people that know more than yourself is a good way of expanding as a musician as well.
Right, and you've got to pay it forward too. You need to be willing to play with musicians who are not as good as you, because somebody helped you along. You've got to help somebody else along. It's a two-way street there.
That's right. Yep, it's trying to stay humble too, which is a big part of being a musician. And as the young lad said a few weeks ago, I can't remember his name now on the show, he talked about leaving your ego at the door, which is not always easy.
When I was in Nashville, I would deal with very famous people a lot, and they were usually just normal people. But then there would be these people that moved into town, and they had chops out the yin-yang. I mean, they could play faster than John McLaughlin, and they were here to change Nashville. They're going to show them how it's done, and until they got rid of that attitude, nothing would happen for them. And in fact, sometimes before they even got their career off the ground in Nashville, it wasn't like a blacklist. It's just everybody already said, "Oh, that guy." people would roll their eyes, and it's really sad to see that, because some incredibly great players go to places like Nashville and New York and don't make it, partially because of their ego and their attitude. That's a very big.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that just about wraps it up for the show, Sam. It's been a real pleasure having you on, and I'm sure anybody watching would have taken some great ideas from that. So thanks once again, Sam, and hopefully we'll have you back on the show in the near future.
I look forward to it. It's been my pleasure.
Yeah, it's been great having you on. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching, everyone. And next week we're going to have Cheryl Payne on the show, who's going to share some interesting capo techniques with her. She's also from Florida. So make sure you tune in for that. Same time and the same place. And don't forget, you can continue the conversation on the blog online. See you soon.